The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Coming off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner with you here. We got the full gang back together once again. We got Jimmy, we got Casey, we got Jacob, and we have Elliot Rearing, everybody. Elliot, good morning.
Oh, hey, round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.
Inducing your own round of applause.
Yeah.
Casey didn't clap.
I also didn't clap for myself because that would be rude. Sure. But we're here. It's a very pleasant Monday morning back in Cincinnati.
You got a little tan, dude.
Did I?
Yeah, you got a little kiss of the sun.
Serbian skin.
It makes the Serbian skin looks great. Listen, I love Hilton Head. We go to Hilton Head every single year. My family does, and it's always a lot of fun. This year, loved it. Was great. Very hot. Very hot. Now, I know everybody knows, oh, you're going to South Carolina. You think it's not going to... It was so hot that it was almost miserable. It was fun because obviously once the sun goes down, what's that Kenny Chesney song? But, we all had a good time once we go to the beach later on. But if you wanted to go to the beach at like noon or 11 or 1 p, it's just like, oh, my God, it was just beating down on you because it didn't really rain. Usually when you go down there, it rains, it cools it off for a little bit, winds are blowing. And it's like, all right, then we're getting ready for the next day. It didn't rain one time when I was there. And it was just so humid and muggy and sticky. Whenever you walked outside, it just hit you. It was just like, ugh. But it was fun. It was a good time. I had a fun time.
Sounds like they're getting hit pretty good right now, though. Sounds like you got back just in time.
Correct. I heard that, too.
It's quite a scary storm that's kind of hitting that part of the country. Yeah. So, nonetheless, but we are glad to have you back. And, when you left, the Reds were struggling. And now that you're back, they are, well, we'll get to them. Jimmy, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good.
Is that a different Lions hat? How many different Lions hats?
I have two.
You have two?
Yeah, I have my
rotating them out.
The one I wore last week, and then my NFC North champs hat.
Does he always wear a hat? He's
a big hat guy.
I usually wear hats. Yeah.
Well, take your hat. I want to see how much hair do you have. Oh, you have a full head of hair. Okay.
I got a haircut.
Okay. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Happy haircut.
Thanks.
Happy haircut. Casey, how are you, sir?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Have you noticed something different about our guy Casey? Was he no glasses before you left?
If I'm going to be honest with you, it's been like 4 weeks since I've seen Casey, so I don't even know.
We have not.
I don't even know what he looks like.
So, good-looking guy.
That's a great-looking guy. He's got that mustache.
Yeah. You like it?
He's got the scruff coming in a little bit.
Yeah. Looks good. There's the eyebrows. Listen, I love Casey's look. I love his appearance. So the haircut looks nice. Everything about him looks great today.
All right, we not just one but two Luke Combs concerts over the weekend.
That's right.
And everyone says I'm hungover when I come in for work all the time. But how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good.
You got the two-dayer? You got the two-dayer going?
Had the Sunday buffer day, so we recovered. We sat down, we played some NCAA, and we recovered. But Friday and Saturday night, Luke Combs was great. I mean, unbelievable show both nights. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, last year Swift came for 2 nights. You got Combs for 2 nights. I wonder who they'll bring in next year.
That's right. Hopefully
for 2 nights.
Jimbo was down there on Saturday, too.
Oh, you went too?
I went Saturday, yeah.
Nice.
We were down in the pit. It was cool. I'd never been down low like that for anything, really. So I enjoyed it. It was fun.
I saw that he had the losers of his fantasy football league have to go up and sing. And I'm here to tell you, that doesn't sound that bad. I don't care. I mean, if you're, friends of Luke Combs or family of Luke Combs,
right,
and he tells you got to go up and sing in front of 50,000 people or however many people were there, I don't care. I would do it. I don't care how bad I sound.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, they stunk, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Little intoxicated, probably?
Oh, I mean, they wheeled an entire cooler out there.
Boys and gals. I'm not really sure who was all there, but nonetheless, very cool. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We are off and rolling again. Glad to have Elliot back. Elliot, there's a ton that has happened since you've been gone. I mean, between the Bengals camp, we have the hold in with Jamar Chase that we've spent a lot of time on. injuries, non-injuries through camp that we spent some time on. The Reds, the Reds are the exact same now than when you left. I mean, you buy in for a second, and then they remind you who they are the next. So there's a lot happening right now with the Cincinnati Reds, or is there? We'll start with you right off the bat because I want to get into the series from over the weekend. Some interesting talking points that we'll take away from Chatterbox Reds with Trace and Nick Kirby. My phone's going off, so I'm trying to pretend like that's not happening. But Elliot, your just overall takeaways from the Reds from the time you left to now, because I don't feel like a whole lot's changed. There's been a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and that's basically been your 2024 Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, I think when I left for vacation, I didn't expect the Reds to go on some crazy run. They were playing beatable teams. I'll keep saying it. As the Reds played the Rays while I was gone, they played the Giants. They beat the Cubs. God bless the Cubs. They're the only team the Reds beat. The Cubs, and coincidentally, any team that's fighting for a World Series this year. That's the only teams the Reds beat. That's it. Outside of that, they play horrendous baseball. Horrendous baseball. And it's one of those things where I was deciding yesterday. I was just thinking about it as I was not watching a game that was on, what was it, Fubo? What
Roku,
channel?
the Roku channel.
What a joke. We're not going to.
It was a mission to get that game.
We're not going to black out the game. We're just going to put it somewhere where nobody knows where it is, how you can get it.
Well, the headline of this one is no blackouts.
Is that?
You can watch it anywhere.
That's right.
Just
if
you have the Roku channel,
which nobody does, of course. So yeah, I was thinking yesterday. I was watching it. Looking back at this season, when this 2024 season, the book is written, it's finished, you close it up. What am I going to remember? And for me, I think the biggest takeaway I have is it's a lost season for our core. I don't know what the core is. I've been trying to figure it out, and we don't know what the core is because they've really yet to play a full season together. Who's on the core? Is Noelvi Marte a part of the core? I know how young he is. I get it. But I can't sit up here and pretend that he's been any sort of competitive this season. He's been abysmal. It's like he hasn't even played. In fact, when he has played, he's not helped the team at all. He's hurt the team just by playing. CES, when he was here earlier on this season, was terrible. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one of the worst qualified players in baseball at his position while he was up. Of course, injuries. Matt McClain. 2 massive injuries in his first 2 seasons in the big leagues. What is Matt McClain? I don't know because I haven't seen it. I know what I have with Ellie De La Cruz. I know what I have with Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, and Andrew Abbott. Those are my steps of the ladder, per se. But we're climbing up the Eiffel Tower, and I got the first 4 steps. We got about 1,000 more steps to get to the top, and I feel like we're not close. And that's my biggest takeaway from this season. The whole thing was we focus on the core. Just have the core get reps. They're young. They'll figure it out. If you're not on the field, I can't judge you. And none of them have been healthy, and I hate to say that. None of them are healthy and or steroids. So I'm looking at this season, I'm like, this is a completely lost season. Not just because the Reds are terrible, which they are. It's because the whole point, the whole premise of this rebuild, what would happen last year, was that we get to see a new group of players play together, struggle together, win together, lose together, and that hasn't been the case. We've seen nothing. What am I supposed to say? Santiago Espinal's hitting real good? That's my takeaway from this year? What about Jonathan India? Jonathan India's having a great year. Jonathan India is a guy nobody wants. He's a guy that supposedly doesn't have a spot. So now I'm thinking, what do we have here? We got a guy that nobody wants that doesn't have a spot. We got everybody that's hurt. And we're still trying to figure out what we are. And what we are, unfortunately, is a losing team. I don't know what else there is, really. Because my biggest takeaway is that I came into this season hoping that I'd get to see some sort of glimpse, I didn't expect a World Series run, but I expected some sort of positive reinforcement that this core is it. I've gotten none of it. Elliot De La Cruz is very good. Hunter Green, elite. Nick Lodolo, very good. Andrew Abbott, very good. The rest, what am I supposed to say? That's my takeaway. And it's disappointing, but I just get frustrated with it so much that it's hard for me to watch these games at this point. this season.
2 years ago, whenever they were losing the 100 games, I mean, they were bad. And we didn't talk a lot of Reds. I mean, we talked Reds, but we didn't really push the Reds. There was not a whole lot to talk about. It was an abysmal season. It was a horrible feeling to be a fan of a team losing 100 games. And let's not act like had they lost 98 that it would be any better. I mean, look, this has been a bad team, a bad organization for quite some time. There's been a lot more valleys than peaks, no doubt about it. But the thing about it is I feel like I'm almost as pissed off this season as I was when they were losing 100 games. And I don't know why. And it's like one of those things where we're never going to be happy, because I think at the end of the day what we ultimately want is something that I think that this team, some weeks I feel like they're close to it, and then other weeks I feel like this week it's like, my gosh, are we ever going to get to experience what generations past of Reds fans got to experience? You know, I watched that Pete Rose documentary last week, and, you know, while everyone wants to talk about the Pete Rose aspect of it, all I continued to take away from it was how big time the Reds used to feel. Megastars. They were the Beatles of baseball. I mean, they were just, bigger than life. And they had the stars. They had the success. They had the stars. They had the most important thing they had was expectations, right? And realistic expectations. They had good players. They were a good team, a good organization that was expected to win. Right now, we expect them to win, but they don't have an accumulation of great players, and they're not a great organization, but we still expect them to win. That's going to create a lot of up and down feelings. That's going to create a lot of chaos from Reds fan standpoints, and that's what makes this so tough to watch. You know, 2 years ago, losing 100 games, I'm ticked off, but I'm disassociated with it. I'm very much associated with this team right now, and I think that's the problem, is because I just need them to be something. Be really, really bad, or be really, really good. I thought I would enjoy in the middle. 2 years ago, they're losing 100 games. I'm like, man, at least, I just wish they were just somewhat more interesting. You can't say that this team's not interesting this year. I mean, we go from talking about how this team doesn't lose in game ones to, well, they got no hit in game one. They don't lose on Friday night, on the City Connect night, right? They don't lose on those nights. They got no hit on that night. And then typical Reds fashion, they win game two. They look impressive doing it. Everyone shows out. And then game three, they blow a game that I heard Trace say during Chatterbox Reds. They had that 2-0 lead, and their expected win percentage at that point was like 70-something%. They go on to lose. Like, this is, I don't even know what to make of this team at this point. And that's why, like, there's some weeks everyone wants David Bell gone, and then other weeks I'm defending him, say, well, what's the point? I mean, David Bell's the least of the concerns of this team. And the thing is fans want to point at something, and they don't know what to point at. They don't know who to point at. One thing I found interesting, and we'll cue this up, Casey, Jim Bowden, MLB analyst, former GM. I found this very interesting. The Reds, take a look at this. The Reds' expected win-loss record, according to the metrics, is 59-52. Their run differential is second best in the National League Central, yet they're in last place with MLB most underachieving team based on the analytics and scouting evaluators. So I know everyone wants to say how bad this team is. He goes on to say statistics waiting to be corrected or just an aberration. That's what's fascinating about this team. I think that's why this has been such an emotional roller coaster of a season. 1 week it looks like, man, if they just had Matt McClain, if Friedel was just more consistently in the lineup throughout the season, not IL stints left and right, if Christian Encarnacion Strand doesn't go out and continues the trajectory that we expected. You know what I mean? Like, if all of these, if that 1-11 stretch in May doesn't happen, there's so many things we keep looking at saying that they're this close, but then today we come in and every one of us is like, man, this team's so far away. They're so far away, but I see that tweet, and again, all the metrics are saying how this team's actually pretty good. 59-52, and that's without Matt McClain. That's with TJ Friedel in and out of the lineup, multiple IL stints throughout the season. That's with all the inconsistencies that the Reds have had. That's with them making no moves at the deadline of substance to help this team now. I know everything's about the future, but at what point is now a priority? That's the thing. We could sit there and say, well, this team has a long way to go. The metrics say otherwise. We buy into the metrics that we want to use to sell our story, to tell our side of it, but we want to ignore the other ones. And the other ones are telling us, according to this, that this team, based on the run differential, based on what all the metrics are showing, that this is a pretty good baseball team that is just underperforming. So then it takes us to the next stage of this. I am so sick of every time our teams aren't doing well. We want to, with the Bengals in September every year, fire Zach Taylor. And then Zach Taylor's the head coach of a team that goes to the AFC Championship game back-to-back years, that wins the division, that goes to the Super Bowl. But he's the problem, right? Every September, he's the problem, right? David Bell, last year, one of the best stories in all of baseball. Team expected to lose 100 games. And they go on to be one of the best stories in baseball all season. They missed the playoffs by 2 games. David Bell, potential manager of the year. Should have, I feel like, got robbed of it a little bit, to be quite honest with you. And here we are, not even a full calendar year later, and everyone wants him gone. And I've said before, I think there's a long list of things of what is wrong with this team, but what do you do? At what point is it David Bell's problem? And again, I'm not going to pretend to be a managerial aficionado when it comes to Major League Baseball, okay? But at the same time, because the game has shifted a lot. But I sit here right now and I look at David Bell and I look at the Reds. I'm like, what is it that I want him gone for? To me, it's when a team is not matching expectations, that's when I start looking at the manager. We could talk about one-run games. Every baseball guy I've talked to, my former co-host grew up in a baseball family. His dad coached, with the Atlanta Braves for many years. He was the coach of the Dayton Flyers for many years. Mark Schlemmer, R.I.P. to him. I miss him dearly. But man, everything he said, every baseball guy I've talked to, one-run games always fall back on the manager. I mean, I don't know. You could use that number right there, especially this season. You could talk about the closeout games that we've talked about on the show. But when I look at that according to the metrics, an expected record of 59-52, and they're well below that, last place in the division, 6.5 out of the wild card. And, all the numbers are showing that this is just an underperforming team. That's when I look at David Bell. At the risk of going over on this segment real quick, take a look. This is a clip from Chatterbox Reds. Trace brought up the fact that everyone is after David Bell with their pitchforks. Here's Nick Kirby's response on Chatterbox Reds following the Reds' series loss yesterday afternoon.
Be below 500.
Right.
So, again, I don't really care. Like, fire David Bell. It's going to make people feel happy. It's going to give people false hope. If you think that David Bell's the reason that the Reds are where they're at right now and you think firing him is going to fix it, you want to talk about some false hope for next year. That's certainly it. Now, on the one-run games, I don't know. I mean, one-run games are so fluky. Last year, the Reds were 34-29 in one-run games. I think David Bell was the manager. How about this? In 2022, the year the Reds lost 100 games, the Reds were 21-23. So David Bell just magically managed well in those games, or close to 500 in those games. I don't know, man. It's tough. But again, I don't really care anymore. I really don't.
You've been broken.
Again, a lot of really good points. That's what makes this so fascinating. I'm tired of the managerial debate, but I think now, the reason I was tired of it at the beginning, and me and Elliot were on the same side on this for the longest time about make a list of all the Reds' problems. I haven't got to David Bell yet. I don't think he's a problem. But now we've seen enough to where I don't think he's at the top of the list of the problems, but I do believe it's fair to be bringing him up and saying, okay, David Bell, they haven't given you the best ingredients to go make the best 5-course meal in the world, but at some point you got to start making something edible. And right now, nothing seems edible when it comes to this team. So we're going to step away for a few moments. I'm curious the guys' takeaways on Nick Kirby's response last night on Chatterbox Reds. Make sure you are also subscribing to that podcast, following that podcast, as well as watching it live here on Chatterbox Sports, of course, on YouTube. But we'll step away for a few moments. When we come back, more reaction. Curious Elliot and Jacob, Jimmy and Casey's thoughts on this. Are we at the point now where there is enough tangible talking points to move on from David Bell? Or are we still at the point now where, hey, there's just not enough there for us with all the problems that David Bell should be at the top of the list? Where do you fall? We'll be right back. All right, we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Justin, Jimmy, Casey, Elliot is back, and we have Jacob, of course. And good morning, everyone. Talking Reds to open up. I thought that Bobby Bowden, I did it. I told you I wasn't going to do it. I called him Bobby Bowden. I apologize. Jim Bowden, his tweet, again, about the Reds. According to the metrics, their one-loss record, according to the metrics, is 59-52. That's what the metrics have, when you accumulate all of them. That's what the Reds' record should be. They have the second best run differential in the NL Central. They're last place in that division, of course. And they, according to the metrics, are Major League Baseball's most underachieving team based on the analytics and scouting evaluators. So when I read that, I went from not being David Bell needs to be talked about to be, being his job status with the Reds. I read that and I'm like, well, that's what I've always put on managers. That's what I've always put on bosses. That's what I've always put on anyone that's in charge of something. If you are underachieving, that's on you. That's on you, because these numbers are saying that they are underachieving even with the injuries. I mean, that's with Friedel being in and out of the lineup, multiple IL stints. That is with McClain not playing all season. That is with so many moving parts. that we keep using all these excuses as to why David Bell shouldn't be talked about. But at the end of the day, we could talk about why they're not better, but they're still good, and they're good enough to be underachieving at this point. I'm curious, when you hear that, does that change your stance on David Bell? We'll start with Jacob. Jacob, does this change? I mean, I'm curious your thoughts on that tweet just based on analytics showing that this is, I thought that was wild. The most underachieving team in baseball, according to the analytics, is the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, no, certainly not what you want to hear. And I guess you can look at it as a silver lining that the team's maybe a little bit better than you think, but I don't really take it that way. I think this team underperforms for a reason, and the way a lot of those statistics look at records and everything is run differential and how you affect games and losing close games versus winning blowouts. And that's what this team does, which is why all their expected wins and losses and everything are so much higher, is because whenever they win 11-0 in game 1, and then they lose game 2 and game 3 2-0 and 1-0. So all of those expected numbers are so much better because they do score big when they win. At least it feels like. Someone can probably pull up stats and prove that I'm wrong, but it feels like that's the case. And that's why I don't really take anything to these numbers. I mean, the Reds, in my opinion, are one of the bottom 5-7 or so teams in the league. And if you look at the thing, they have a plus 45 run differential or something like that. And I don't care. It's because they always lose games. They lose the games they should win. They win the games they should lose. And they lose everything that's a coin flip. So why am I putting more investment into what this team should be when we've seen what they are? And I think if you've watched enough of the Reds this season, there's no more questions about what this team is or what this team could be. At least this season, we all know what they are and we know what they've been. And I don't know whose fault it really is because you can say that there's talent on this team, but I would push back on that. I think we're fielding about half a lineup of major league players right now. And, the pitching's been great, and that's awesome, but it doesn't matter if you can't allow wins. Hunter Green had a .33 ERA in the month of July, and he went 2-2. So, I mean, what more can you want? At some point, the manager has to do something. I understand that he's been under 500 basically every year he's been here. He's also been projected to be under 500 every year he's been here. So I don't know how much is on him. If we can get the magic manager most of Twitter wants that's going to come in and have Will Benson start hitting 280, that'd be phenomenal. I mean, let's go hype these guys up, tell them to put the bat on the ball because that's apparently what some manager out there is capable of doing. I don't think changing the manager is going to change everything with this team. I think it needs to be done because at some point you can't defend David Bell anymore. He's been treading water for half a decade now. So it's time to move on. The extension last year was a knee-jerk reaction to an incredible run. I understand he did a good job, but yeah, I think it's time to move on. And whether you do it now, whether you do it at the end of the season, I don't think it matters. This team's not going on a Rob Thompson Phillies run and winning the World Series. So I don't think firing him now is going to move the needle a whole lot. Fire him after the season. It really doesn't matter to me. I'll be upset if he's the manager of the team next year, though.
Keep in mind, going on to Elliot, that 59 and 52, what the analytics are saying their adjusted record should be, they would be a half game out of a wild card right now. It'd be a much different vibe, right, as far as that's concerned. And, it's wild. But, Elliot, you hear all those things. And, again, we've been so back and forth on this, but I am curious, like, for me, it's I don't put a lot of blame on David Bell until I start seeing things like that where there's not enough tangible things for me to say, well, all of the struggles are on David Bell. But to me, when the analytics show that this team is good enough to be better than they are, I immediately look at a manager, and this isn't a David Bell thing, it's any manager. If any manager is leading a team that is underperforming, I'm not automatically calling for their job, but I think this is the first time where I've had something tangible to say, yeah, David Bell, I think I'm starting to – I think the seat should be pretty hot at this point.
I want to say a couple things. Number one, the stat that you showed me, 59 and 52, I'm not a very smart guy, but a stat like that insults my intelligence. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's the same thing. I have the same opinion on that as I do with exit velo. If you hit it 115 right at the shortstop, I don't care. I really don't, and I know that's wrong. He hits it hard, he's showing good AB, whatever you might want to say. If he's out, he's out. If the Reds lose, they lose. I could care less if there's 200-0 expected win. I don't care. They don't win. I don't I can only do with that with so much. I just look at it and I'm like, what is it? I don't get it. I don't care. Where are you finding these magic wins? Because I watch them and I don't see them at all. The standpoint of David Bell right now I have is the Reds are really, really bad at one-run games. They're really, really bad at closing out series because they're really, really bad at fundamental baseball. Really bad. They get caught out in the base path more than any team I've ever seen in my life. They make more stupid mistakes on defense than I've ever seen in my entire life. Their ABs are bad. I look at the team, and at some point, some of it, does fall on David Bell. David Bell continuing to put in Fernando Cruz when it's been very, very clear Fernando Cruz doesn't have it. Fernando Cruz has a 5-something ERA. He's been absolutely terrible over the past month and a half. He still comes in high leverage situations. That's on David Bell. Why are you doing that? We have guys in the bullpen that have been better in those situations over that time frame.
In Fernando Cruz's last 15 games, his ERA is 11 even.
He's not been good. And that everybody sees it. And there's stuff with the lineup that I don't like. Sure. I don't like how he cherry picks who gets in, why they get in, and yada, yada, yada. My whole defense of David Bell was not that I like David Bell. It's that you're not going to find somebody that's going to make this team significantly better. Now, the issue where the Reds are right now is you can't find somebody that'll make them worse. Maybe Tony La Russa. But outside of that, whoever comes in to inherit this roster, Santiago Espinal, Stuart Fairchild, 170 Noelvi, 240 OBP, Jamier Candelario, you're not fixing anything. The only thing that it does is show that, hey, this isn't working, let's move on, let's try something else. Because as everybody knows, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. I've seen, unfortunately, what David Bell has brought me, and that is a lot of losing. It's not all his fault. I firmly believe it's not all David Bell's fault that guys can't run the bases, that guys are dropping routine pop-ups, that our center fielder won't throw it home when there's a guy on third with one out. There's a ton of basic mistakes that are being missed that I think start in T-ball. Fundamental mistakes that T-ball coaches put on their kids. Do I think David Bell should be able to teach a guy how to field a routine ground ball consistently? No, because I think as a professional baseball player, you should already have that skill developed. But at some point, David Bell, and I said this on Twitter yesterday, went on a long rant on Twitter about it because I'm just tired of seeing the David Bell stuff. When your only statistic is win-loss record and you have a really bad one, I can't sit up here and defend you. So David Bell, hasta luego. We'll see you later, buddy. Because it's over. It's over for David Bell. It's not getting better with David Bell. I'd argue if you put David Bell on the Dodgers, they'd still win 90 games. I'd argue if you brought any manager to the Reds, they'd still have the same record. But you can't argue hypotheticals. I can only argue what David Bell has given me, and what he's given me is nothing. And I say that with a lot of love and a lot of respect. But at some point, it's time for a change. The Reds have to make that change. I forget who said it in the chat. And I apologize for not saying it. One of the things is, at some point, David Bell has to be cut off. The leash is, at some point, it's too long. And forgive me for not knowing who said that in the chat. I was going to shout him out. And that's fair. At some point, David Bell can't continue to manage the team after losing seasons. That's 100% fair. I'm not mad at anybody calling for David Bell to be fired. I get a little bit mad when the entire season falls on David Bell, because that's absolutely not true. You can't watch this season and say, oh, David Bell is the reason they lose every game. Just not the case. I think coaching matters. I think coaches and Major League Baseball managers, I don't know if they matter as much as the GM, as much as the players on the field, and as much as ownership. There's ownership, there's the front office, there's the players on the field, and then there's the manager. The manager is dead last out of those four, whatever you want to call them. There's four categories. The manager is the least important part of a team. I firmly believe that. Do I think David Bell is a good manager? Nah. Do I think he's a bad manager? Nah. I just think he's a middle-of-the-road manager that, if I'm going to be completely honest, he's just overstayed his welcome. I'm tired of the debate. I get rid of him, fire him as soon as possible, because, to be quite honest, it cannot get worse. That's the only pro, con, whatever you want to say. Bringing somebody in might not help. but it certainly can't be worse than what David Bell has given us this season. And I'm very sorry. I think it's admirable what he did last year, as Kinner mentioned. That was a 60-win projected team. Took them almost to the playoffs. And that's given every injury that they've had. I think they used a franchise record of players last year. That's how beat up they were towards the end of that season. Guys you've never heard of are coming in to pitch. So, yeah, I give David Bell a little bit of credit for last season. I think that 3-year extension, looking back on it's a joke. I think it's an embarrassment. And now we have to live with those consequences. The question is now, will the Castellinis man up, and will they fire him? And to be quite honest, with the money they just extended him, I don't know if they will. I think they should after this train wreck. But will they? I don't think so.
Whether he's the manager of the Reds or not next year, I virtually guarantee you he'll be with the Reds. If they move on from him, I bet he moves up to the front office or stays with the organization somehow, just like his dad did for however long when he was in the front office, when he didn't really do anything just to keep David happy. I think he's just going to move up, and just like we saw with the Reds this year, they don't care about the fans being mad about the ownership. They just promoted everyone in the front office as soon as everyone wanted to burn that office down after the trade deadline. So they don't care about how it looks, the optics, or anything like that, and I would be shocked if the Castellinis just eat the money on David Bell's contract when they could just put him at a desk.
Yep. It's interesting, though, to me. It's interesting what will happen after this year because I mentioned it earlier, but it just seems like a wasted year. It's a wasted season for all kinds of reasons. And I wasn't here to talk about the trade deadline. I thought what they did there was bad. I thought that's an F grade from the trade deadline. I thought promoting Phil Castellini is a disgrace. I know that's what they do. It's just part of the role when you're the son of the owner. I think that's bad. I think it's a bad look. It's tone deaf. Outside of that, as Jacob said, we've known who they are for a while now, and who they are as a team without an identity. They're inconsistent, and part of that does fall, unfortunately, onto David Bell. So should he be fired? Yeah, he probably shouldn't be with the team any longer.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Final thoughts on this before we head to hour number 2 on the radio side, of course, and then we'll get to some Bengals camp updates, Elliot's headlines. We still buy or sell coming up. We got a lot more coming your way. More Off the Bench when we come back. All right, again, unpacking a lot coming out of the weekend. I know it sounds like we're unpacking what came out of the weekend because we haven't really talked about the Giants series itself. I mean, we alluded to it earlier, the no-hitter on Friday, but I think this fan base, they're broken. Reds fans feel broken right now. Nick Kirby on Chatterbox Reds yesterday said, he's broken when it comes to, of course, all the talk about the David Bell stuff. And Jimmy, I want to get to you in a second. I just want to reset this quick. All the reaction towards David Bell, everyone is pointing the finger at him. One thing I will say, when we question the Reds manager, like the way you guys sound at times, Elliot and Jacob, is like, well, that's not going to fix anything right now. That's, you look at all the problems. I talk about the managerial position like we do, like if we need to upgrade it in the outfield. Like, man, they need to really go improve in the outfield. If we talk about, Benson, he's not bad, he's not great, he's just and he's been bad this year. But he's just If I'm saying a player's just that's an area that needs to be improved then. Like, that should be important then. So, Elliot, when you say that David Bell is not a good manager, he's not a bad manager, he's just to me, that's why you do look to improve it right there. If there's an opportunity to improve so that we're not saying our manager is that's why you improve it right there. Like, not to get into a big debate, but it's like, I know you're just saying as far as prioritizing areas of improvement, the manager's down at the bottom, but it's still an area that needs improvement if the Reds want to get where they need to go. Because let's just say that the Reds do improve and they add depth and their pitching's good and their bullpen and pitching matches if the run production, everything matches the production they're getting from pitching, although the bullpen's starting to look a little worn down at this point. Then is David Bell all of a sudden a good manager again? Like, that's the big argument amongst everything, is how much of the blame actually is on David Bell. And sometimes it's not about blame. The wild thing that could happen is the Reds can move on from David Bell, and whoever comes in to replace him, and the Reds all of a sudden add pieces in the offseason, they're relatively healthy next year, then the Reds take off, and then everyone's going to say, see, David Bell was the problem. But sometimes that's unfair. Look, I told you about that Pete Rose documentary. The wild thing is he gets suspended from baseball in 89, right, after the 89 season. And then you have Lou Piniella coming in 90. They win the World Series in 90. One of the clips that stands out to me the most from that Pete Rose documentary is Pete Rose said, those are my guys. Like, Pete Rose would have been, as legendary of a figure as he is with the Cincinnati Reds, as a player, he would have been as much, if not bigger, of a personality as a manager, because he would have been the manager of a World Series winning team in 90. Unless you say Piniella did things that Pete Rose didn't that allowed them to win. Okay, that's an argument for later. But my point is we see this all the time where guys come in and achieve things that basically the previous coach or manager had to suffer through all the ups and downs with initially to set the stage. The Golden State Warriors are a prime example. Mark Jackson, he was the guy that initially absorbed the talents out of the draft of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. He develops them. He helps them go through all the losing. He helps them start to kind of climb that mountain, start to achieve success. And then what happens? Steve Kerr comes in, first-year head coach, bam, wins an NBA championship, and he's the face of the most recent dynasty in the NBA, and that's why he's leading Team USA right now in the Olympics. Like, we see this all the time where guys come in and get to benefit from the struggles from the previous manager. Hell, you can argue Brian Price, the manager of the Reds, when they were going through all the hell that they were before, he went through all the losing. Now, I'm not saying David Bell has achieved success, but David Bell came in with a much better cupboard full of that was at least more full than what Brian Price did. But yet, outside of the playoff appearance, what has David Bell done with this team that Brian Price didn't do? So that's kind of what's wild about all this. But Jimmy, your final thoughts, just Cincinnati Reds with the managerial position right now. David Bell, it's a tug of war right now. I don't think he is the reason that they're struggling, but I wouldn't mind seeing a change. If Elliot said he's meh, if you have a meh anything, if you have a meh bullpen, then you need to improve it. If you have a meh catcher, you need to improve it. Is meh a word? It sounds weirder every time I say it.
I think meh's a word.
Meh's a word.
It's certainly a word.
Yeah.
I'd say it's a word.
Meh is the manager. Are you improving the manager?
Yeah, no, I think I agree with everything you said. I think I defended David Bell for a while. I didn't think a lot of this was his fault, facing having to deal with all the injuries that the Reds have gone through this season in the lineup, and guys who were supposed to be part of their core who are out missing significant time on the 60-day IL or out for the season. I'm not going to hold that against him. And I think it's just eventually it's gotten to a point where you feel really good going into the first game of the series, and then the next two, it almost feels like they are a totally different ball club. And I think as frustrating as that is as a Reds fan, I think that in 2022 when they went 62-100, that's about as low as you can be, especially for an organization like this who hasn't lost 100 very many times. And then last year having a 20-game improvement and winning 82 was probably one of the worst things that could happen, because they missed the playoffs and it kind of felt like the jump start of something. But at the end of the day, they're still kind of right around that 70 to 75 wins. It feels like that's what they're going to get this year. So I think fans have just become impatient with kind of taking a step back. But really what I feel like it was last season they took such a big step forward that to take another step forward, there's still so much to improve. And I'm done kind of defending David Bell. I think letting him go is probably just the best for both parties. Are they going to find someone who's drastically better? I don't know. There are definitely guys out there that could make it worse, just with their kind of track record in the MLB. But, yeah, I don't know. I think letting him go is probably the best decision. And I guess we'll see it when guys come back next year, if things improve, and if they do, great. If they don't, well, then maybe it wasn't David Bell's fault. But I don't know. We'll see.
There could be a whole other list of problems next year. Next year, watch, this lineup will be completely healthy. It'll be one of the best run-producing teams in baseball. And Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott, whatever, pitcher they had in the offseason. Like, you know what I mean? Like, then those guys could be out all next year, and it's like, then we're talking about completely different problems. One other thing to add to this as well, this is Nick Krall at the deadline. He didn't want to sell off the team and wanted to give the group a shot to make a run. There were other potential deals available where the Reds would be sellers, but the returns weren't enough to take away a contributor off the roster. You can't say that you wanted to put this team in a position, all right, to give them a shot to make a run. This is a pathetic organization. If the organization's idea of giving them a shot to make a run is not taking the few good players off of the average team that you have to give yourself a chance to make a run in the second half of the season. So we're also doing this thing where we're taking pieces out of the bullpen, trading them away. We're moving on from what limited pieces the Reds had to begin with, and then we're all sitting here blaming David Bell. The team didn't do its part to give this team and put them in position to succeed back half either.
Yeah, if you think there's pieces on this team that can actually win, then you should have went out and bought. Now, not that I'm advocating for buying at the trade deadline, but if you're going to stand up there and say you're giving this team a chance to win, you needed to add some substantial pieces to the team. Or you needed to sell. And I think that's why everyone's mad at the trade deadline, is because they just sat on the fence. And then that makes both sides mad. At least if they would have bought, just the people that wanted him to sell would have been mad. And if they would have sold, sure, people would have been mad. But I think the reality of what this team is would have set in pretty quickly, and people would have been fine with it. Sitting on the fence and keeping a bunch of guys that are going to expire at the end of the year and not getting anything back for them, I think that's where you really just lose the entire fan base, because I don't think you understand what the direction of the team's going. Both fans don't understand what they want to do, and it's starting to seem like the front office doesn't know what they want to do either.
That's why I said earlier, real quick, like, be really, really bad or be good. This in-between thing is just exhausting. And it's like when you're in between, like you said, if you sell off pieces and then you drop off in a really bad, well, we expected it because you moved on from pieces. But if you added pieces and then you become really, then you're one of the other. But I think even after the 100-loss season a couple years ago, being in the middle is a very bad spot to be in right now, because they didn't do their part to even commit to one side or the other. And then they're trying to convince us that, well, we didn't want to ruin this team's chances of making a run in the second half. And that's your contribution. That's wild, Elliot. That's wild.
I don't understand how Nick Kroll, every time that guy speaks, I get upset. Everything he says is wrong. And I credit Nick Kroll, everything that he's done here for us. He's been a part of bringing us Elliot De La Cruz, Noelvi, CES, yada, yada, yada. I thank him very much for what he's done. But every time he speaks, he says the wrong thing. And it's always at the wrong time, and it's always to the people who are just begging for any sort of hope. Avoid the peaks and valleys. Why don't you want to see the peak, brother? You don't want to be to the top of the mountain ever? We just want to be in the middle? That's the message? That's the mantra we're living by? It's terrible. When I saw I legit had to throw my phone. When I saw we're going to give these guys a chance to win the rest of the year. We're going to get rid of Lucas Sims. But you know what? We're going to give him a chance to win. How? How are you doing that, Nick? And the answer is he's not going to. It's just service, so he can just say words that mean nothing. And the fan base is supposed to just sit there and take it as the Reds lose yet another season. It infuriates me. You asked Jimmy, shouldn't they improve it because David Bell's a meh manager? My argument is, who are you going to replace him with?
Right.
Craig Counsell, are objectively the best manager in the offseason? That's what the Cubs did. Paid him $10 million. How's that working for them? Nothing. And they were projected to win the division. One of them and the Cardinals were projected to win the division. And they've objectively failed under Craig Counsell's great leadership. Is Craig Counsell at fault for Christopher Morel hitting a $185 before they shipped him away? At what point do the players just have to be good? And I know that's like I don't know I don't know how else to rationalize my opinion on this. But it's not like the NFL. There are no schemes really. It's all done by a computer. There's no feel. It's not NFL football. Zach Taylor, we talk about managers, coaches, yada yada yada. I think Joe Burrow yesterday came out with Kay Adams, said he's very good with the quarterback. He makes me feel good about my position. Makes me feel confident. The plays are designed for me. It's not like that. It's just so different. Vastly different sports. David Bell's a meh manager. There's another 25 meh managers in the league you could hire that don't fix this if Nick Kroll and the Castellini family are not willing to put a roster together that wins games. Why do the Reds stink? Because we got a bunch of bad players. That's why they stink. It's not because of David Bell.
Do I want to replace a manager with a great manager? Absolutely.
Sure.
Are there more than, I think, 2 or 3, maybe 4 great managers in baseball? No. I think there's 2 bad ones, 3 good ones, and about 25 in the middle that are meh. Because I think more often than not, you're hiring an ex-player who's going to sit in the dugout, shake the owner's hand after a win and after a loss, and do whatever they want you to do with the lineup. And I think that's what the Reds are going to get, regardless of who they hire. Do I want it to work? Absolutely. Do I think we're just going to get another manager and hopefully they win instead of lose? Yes.
Who's the manager of the Guardians?
Stephen Vogt.
Stephen Vogt. It's a player. I mean, I mean no disrespect. Same thing with Skip Schumacher. Is it Skip Schumacher's fault that the Marlins are the world's worst team? No. They don't have any players. Like, I want to understand, and I do to an extent. David Bell, there's no logic to defend him. And I think Sir Boy tweeted that yesterday, and I had to express my thoughts. You can't defend David Bell. Like, there are no words to defend him. You have a bad record, you don't win in the postseason, and to be quite honest, you haven't accomplished anything. So I can't sit here and be like, you know what, David Bell, you should have the job. My only hesitation to firing him is that you're just going to keep rotating a circus of clowns, and we're just going to have them manage, and nothing really changes unless the players are good.
I think people get confused about our argument that, not that we're even arguing it anymore, but when we sat up here and defended David Bell for a long time, that we thought he was a good manager. No, that's not it. We're just arguing about where he lies on the list of things causing this Reds team to underperform. And I think that's the disconnect between two parts of the fan base. Some people think that changing the manager is just going to all of a sudden make this same collection of players competitive, and that's where I disagree.
Now, there was one name being constantly thrown out to be potential manager of the Reds a couple years ago before the Reds had this rebuild took off. Barry Larkin's name gets thrown out a lot. But let's step away for a few moments. Every time I say we're going to put this to bed, there's more that comes in. But the chat's throwing in some names that I think are interesting. Throw in some who, again, we always want to get rid of, but we never have a solution to who to replace them with. We got Elliot's headlines coming up on the other side, as well as I want to read a couple of these names that the chat's throwing in. Who would you like to see replace David Bell if David Bell is released and let go of after this upcoming season? More Off the Bench next. All right, we want David Bell out. At least that seems to be the popular take from everybody in the chat and Reds fans across the board. Not everybody, but the majority, right? And the question is, well, we want David Bell out, but to kind of merge all of our debates here is we want David Bell out. Everyone has different reasons for why they want him out. Some people say, well, it's not that we want him to stay, but we don't really agree with all the reasons that you guys want him out, because to want him out means you have an idea of someone to come in to replace him, and that manager is going to do a better job because fill in the blank. What is his manager going to do that's different than David Bell that all of a sudden is going to get something out of this team that is riddled with injuries, that has been inconsistent as they are? You could say, well, he'll improve what they do on the base paths. What would that be exactly? What is David Bell doing that is making them bad on the base paths, or what can he improve? I'm not mocking you. I'm curious your reasoning for who you would replace David Bell with. Some names I'm seeing come in on the chat. One is obviously Nick Kirby. Jimmy says Nick Kirby for manager, as far as that says. No, but obviously the one, Barry Larkin's name has been brought up for many years. Barry Larkin was, before, of course, jumping in the broadcast booth, was kind of really hands-on with the Reds farm system and was getting a lot of praise and a lot of love from a lot of the young players who were coming up through the system. And again, you get that former player vibe, that feel that, the fans would love it because when they see Barry Larkin, they right away associate Barry Larkin with the good old days, right? You know what I mean? Like they give you that feel-good vibe right there. Terry Francona's name is in the chat. I see that one being thrown out. How about this one? We want to talk about former players, and although this player is still technically still playing and giving it a shot, there was a player last year that was in this Reds dugout that everybody was saying, man, just his presence in the dugout alone, just his presence in the clubhouse alone gives great energy to these young players, someone that they could look up to and say, I watched this guy do it, I want to do it like this guy. I have no idea if this guy has any managerial aspirations whatsoever. But if we're going to talk about former players, I don't know what Joey Votto's future is as far as Major League Baseball. I don't know. I mean, right now he's putting the bat on the ball in the farm system for the Blue Jays right now. I don't know what his aspirations are as far as how much longer he wants to play. But is that a guy that you approach and just say, hey, you make the guys feel all warm and fuzzy inside when you're in this clubhouse? You've played at the highest of levels. You're a former MVP. Joey Votto. I mean, we're just throwing out names here, but Joey Votto is not the wildest name to throw out, depending on what his future managerial aspirations are. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on any of these names being thrown out, but we know how this works. Big, flashy name. Yeah. We want that. It's some name we've never freaking heard of. Scott Rowland's another name I see. Luke Bredeman he does games for the baseball team for Indiana. Jeff Mercer is the coach for Indiana. He was at Wright State before. Scott Rowland is working on that coaching staff over at Indiana right now. Could Scott Rowland be a name you could throw out there? There's a lot of big names, former player names you could throw out to make the fans feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Doesn't necessarily mean that they would do something different than what David Bell's doing.
Yeah, I'd be more than fine with any of that. I think it would be pretty exciting for the fan base. I don't want anyone who says the manager matters to say they're pro Joey Votto, Scott Rowland, Luke Maley, whatever other player name you've heard out there. I'm perfectly fine with that because I think the manager sits down there, he's a rah-rah guy for the team, and he clicks an iPad. But if you think the manager really affects the outcome of the game, I do not want to hear you banging the table for an ex-player.
It doesn't make sense. I want it. Sure. Do I want Joey Votto in our clubhouse? Do I want Joey Votto to be a Cincinnati Red? Absolutely, I do. Yep. We would all love it. The players would love it. It would be fun. But you can't pretend that he's going to change the way that David Bell's done things, which is, I'm going to be very clear, David Bell doesn't do a ton. He does whatever the analytics, the numbers tell him to do. Correct. So I again, that's what's going to happen if you hire an ex. The only way you'd make a change to what many fans are saying is if you go out and you get a Dusty Baker, some guy that's 70 years old with a lot of baseball experience that doesn't go the way of the analytic. And I'd argue that's probably not the right way either. So I don't know. I'd take any manager anywhere. And I just want to see if the next guy wins games because he's out there winning the game or the players in the field are. Because it's always the players in the field. There's only so many ways I can spin it where it's like, I don't want to say coaches mean nothing. That's not what I mean. But in a large extent, if the players in the field, the Reds rank 28th in batting average, they're 26th in on-base percentage, they're 16th in home runs, they're 16th in slugging percentage. If they were good, if they were first in all those categories, then they'd win games. David Bell would then get the credit, but they're not. David Bell can't force Jeimer Candelario to get on base more than 28% of the time. He can't force Santiago Espinal to stay hot all year round. He can't do it. That's not his job. Now, the only argument that I will say is 100% fair, and many of the anti-David Bell people say this, is the fundamental baseball is a disgrace. I don't know who's responsible for the base path stuff, who's responsible for just telling everybody to steal whenever you want, don't ignore it, or ignore every sign, just run. Just have fun along the base. That's wrong. The base path stuff, at some point, that has got to be on the coach because you are in charge for sending guys home. J.R. House, I think, has done a truly terrible job as the third base coach. Shout out to him. And I think you have David Bell does face a lot of blame for that because the Reds have run in to a ton of outs this season. A lot. So, yeah, I do think the manager matters a little bit, but at the same time, all these former players, Aaron Boone. I'd take Aaron Boone. I'd love Aaron Boone. Joey Votto, sure. I don't want Barry Larkin. For all those guys who say David Bell's boring at the press conference, have you heard Barry Larkin call a baseball game? Respectfully. I don't know what everybody wants. I hope that David Bell gets fired and the new manager comes in.
I do love the people asking for Dusty to come back because they're definitely the same people that ran Dusty out of town.
Oh, yeah.
100%. It's the same exact people.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because if you blame the manager now, you blamed the manager then. And now you just want Dusty back because he won somewhere else. Well, maybe it's because he had a pretty damn good team in Houston. And players matter.
And when he won in Cincinnati that first go-round, although he didn't live up to expectations come playoff time, he won a lot in Cincinnati because they had a very good team. This isn't that same roster. Not saying he needs a good roster to win, but I am going to tell you that pretty much every good manager out there needs a good roster to win. I don't think this roster is far off. Casey, I know you were trying to jump in.
Can I ask you something real quick? Yeah. I'm sorry. Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Do the Dodgers win 90 games with David Bell as the manager?
Probably 97. I mean, but yes, I know your point exactly. Yeah.
Like the Phillies with 10 All-Stars, do they win 90 games with David Bell?
Well, they do with Rod Thompson. So.
Yes. Yes, they do. Do you know why? It's not because of the manager. It's because of the players on the field. If you brought in Bruce Bochy to coach up the Reds right now, are they good? This is a good team?
But
they don't get hits.
But we got to go back to April expectations. This was a good team. I don't know where you guys were. I didn't really know you guys that well then.
That's fair.
This was a team that you talked about the Cubs expected to win. I mean, there were so many teams. The NL Central's not good. Let's just be clear. Like, I know the Brewers are good, but this isn't a great division. So everyone had very different takes on who was going to win this division. The Reds were the darling that everyone was, that sleeper team. Hey, they were coming up through the ranks last year. They just missed the playoffs by 2 games. I mean, I remember we did the show, me, Nick, and Trace from Great American Ballpark on opening day. There was a buzz. There was an excitement. There was an expectation. We could say Nick Kral's bad. We could say all these things, but the bottom line is the only reason we're pissed off is why? Because they're losing. But why are we mad that they're losing? They lost 2 years ago, and we were just kind of flat. But we're losing now, and why are we pissed? Because we had expectations. The Reds did enough to raise expectations. The general manager added enough good players. He developed enough good players through the system for us to get to the point where we have expectations. They're falling short of those expectations, and that's why we're upset. Casey?
Yeah, I mean, the few points here. When you're looking at a new manager, you don't want someone that is going to be monotone and just going to tell you nothing that you want to hear. You want a guy that's going to tell you basically what's going on in the clubhouse. Someone that's going to rip the players, someone that's going to hold them accountable. And you're not going to find that with the ownership that we have currently. It's just going to be the mouthpiece, and it's going to just be a whatever emitting PR, just we're here to play. We're going to continue to try hard, and we'll continue to try to win ball games. That's all you're going to get out of any of the Reds managers that they pick until there's a change in heart in the ownership, and that's just not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. The guy that comes to mind in my mind, a name to throw out there is Chris Sabo. He's a guy that would rip those guys up and down for all the stupid mistakes they make. And he's already coaching at lower levels, so he's going to be fundamentally sound with those players too. So I don't know. It's a guy that wants to be here. That's my name I would throw in the ring. But in terms of managers, I just don't think it matters, because the Reds aren't going to find a guy that is going to give the fans what they want, which is holding the players accountable, not going to pamper the players, not going to lie to you and say that we're here to win ball games when we're just middling franchise. So
No, you're right. I mean, and there's a lot of good names out there doing something different potentially than David Bell, and you say rip him for bad fundamentals. I'm not going to disrespect David Bell to the point to say that David Bell has not once said, trying to give any advice on how to, be more fundamental, right? Like but it's like sometimes the message just runs stale. And you said it earlier, it's just flat. Now, David Bell, if it's just a change of a person in that clubhouse, that could be one of the missing parts to help push this team forward.
If we go out and hire someone who's ever played for the Reds, I think I'll just generally call it a bad hire.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
You need to go out and you need to hire a manager.
I don't want to hire. I also don't want to hire anybody inside the organization.
Agreed.
We've played that game before, and I don't like that game.
As much as I do want someone different than David Bell, I also don't want a Bruce Bochy. I don't think – I understand he's a good manager and he got the Rangers a World Series, but I don't want an old manager, an old-timey manager to come in and manage a team of 22-year-olds. I don't think that meshes well either.
If you get that, the only way you get that, because keep in mind, it's one thing. It's not just the Reds go out and say, you're our manager.
Right.
They have to agree to come here. Here's why I would like Bochy. Bochy coming to Cincinnati because he feels he could win here. So if a manager like that comes here, it's because they feel they could win here. They're not coming here to lose, right? But I'm with you. It doesn't mean – that would be a good job for them. Doesn't mean it's a good hire for the Reds. So, but if it was Bochy, and again, we're not saying that, but if it's a manager like Bochy, the only reason I would be like, oh man, that means around baseball. This is why I felt good about when Joe Girardi. So David Bell got the job back in, what was the year, 18? Was he hired in 18 or 19?
It's been 17.
Was it 17?
No, it's been.
This is his 5th year, right?
No, it's his
sixth.
Sixth.
But whatever year that was, Girardi it was between Girardi and Bell.
18, yeah.
And at that time, and I'm not saying they got it wrong. I don't know if Girardi. Let's be clear here. Let's say they hired Girardi. Who's to say he would have done something different than what we've seen David Bell do at this point? And who's to say that the new manager will do something different than Bell moving forward? I think that's how we wrap that up. So it will be interesting. This is not the last time we're going to talk about David Bell's future with the Cincinnati Reds. I do think that all of us can agree David Bell will be the manager up till the end of this season at the very least. And it's also not crazy to think that he would be the manager next year. Because as you guys have talked about, it's not like the opinion of the fans have mattered to this organization, especially in recent history. In fact, the opinion of the fans has almost been mocked by ownership at times. And that's why I'm really glad that the Reds got really good players in the farm system, but that's almost a bad thing for us because the only thing that did is ownership looking at us like, see, Where are you going to go? You guys mocked me. You mocked us. We made enough good decisions to get you Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain and Spencer Steer and Christian Encarnacion Strand and Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo, and the list goes on and on. Like, these players that have raised the expectations is great, but it's almost going to make them dig their heels in more. Because if you think that front office thinks that they did anything wrong other than, maybe we made a mistake PR-wise by mocking the fans, saying, where are you going to go? The only thing that they did wrong was a PR thing there, because in their minds, they were mocking you because they don't value your opinion. You think you think that because we bitched 2 years ago in the offseason, you think that's why we got Ellie De La Cruz and Christian Encarnacion Strand, Spencer Steer, and all that? Heck no. In fact, we got mad because they moved on from Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez and guys like that, right? That was our breaking point. But that's all I'm saying is this team, they're not going to change the way. So David Bell, very realistically, will be the manager next season as far as that's concerned.
I will say, if it happens, I will be glad I don't have to hear his press conferences anymore.
Who?
David Bell's.
I mean,
because they are bad.
It's the same every night.
They are just like when you get no hit on Friday night at home.
Just not a night.
And on Firework Fridays,
it's just a loss.
It's just another loss. Tough.
Yeah.
You tip your cap to Blake Snell. It's just another loss out there. Okay.
Yeah, the fan base
Sounds
that
good,
hates his
Dave.
press conferences really wants Mr. It's right there in front of us, Aaron Boone, to take over, though.
That's true. That's true too. There is no right answer. Is probably the answer.
All right.
For a small market team.
Right.
What we have here is 4 perfectly executed segments on the radio side. And it's all because our guy Elliot is back today. So everyone give Elliot a round of applause. Hey, even Casey clapped this time. Yeah. But in the meantime of applauding you, now we've gone over. We'll be right back. More Off the Bench with Elliot's headlines when we come back. Man, it's been 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks since Angel Reese had to stat pad to get a triple-double. We welcome you back Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Anyways, Elliot, welcome back.
Well, slight correction.
It's been 3 weeks.
She's never had a triple-double.
She's never had a double-double. I'm sorry. You're right.
Just Caitlin.
Man, if you're going to throw... so only Caitlin. Yeah.
That's right.
My girl Caitlin never stat pads. She just fills the stat sheet.
Amen.
Yeah, there we go. But that was pointless. Welcome back Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Elliot's headlines, everybody. It's been a while. Yeah, that's what it's really been a while. It's been a while since we have had Elliot's headlines, and that's what we head to now. Play the sounder, Casey.
Elliot loves 3 things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
Oh, that's very topical, David Bell. Here we go. Here are the headlines. I know Jacob made fun of me because I only do the score. Elliot only reads the scores. Little does Jacob know, I do that to fill time for this guy so he doesn't have to speak all day long. But I'll do my headlines today. I'm back. We'll start in a positive realm with the Cincinnati Reds. They lose the series finale against the Giants 8-2. The Reds hit back-to-back homers courtesy of Jeimer Candelario and Santiago Espinal to take a 2-0 lead, but they gave up 8 unearned runs, or just earned runs, I guess. 8 earned runs, unanswered runs, and the Reds fall. The Reds' offense, if you were curious how good they were, maybe at the fault of David Bell, they were 12 for 87 in the series. That is a 138 average. They scored 8 times.
I really wish we had a manager that would tell him to hit
More.
Just be better.
Be better.
Yeah, I want a guy that'll do that.
12 for 87 with 30 strikeouts. Yikes. Carson Spires had an admirable effort, 5 2/3, striking out 5, allowing 3 earned runs. He's fine.
He's the most admirable effort pitcher
He is.
we have now without Ashcraft.
He really is.
Yeah, I appreciate.
He is our workhorse.
I appreciate his bump days.
Santiago Espinal, over his last 30 games, is hitting .308 with a .330 OBP, slugging .516. In Santiago's last 7 games, he's hitting .480 with an .840 slug. The Reds back at it tonight against Miami.
Aren't you excited?
First pitch, 6:40. See everybody there. Around the league, Cubs beat St. Louis in a 4-game set, winning yesterday 6-2. Phillies, they shut out the Mariners 6-0. Zach Wheeler, he pitched a gem, striking out 9. The Padres blow out the Rockies 10-2. The Angels, they beat the Mets in the weekend series as they win yesterday 3-2. A very feeble series for the New York Metropolitans. The Dodgers, Red Sox, they win their games yesterday. Ooh, here's a fun one. The Twins beat the White Sox yesterday 13-7. That means the Chicago White Sox have lost 20 games in a row. 20. The modern record for losses in a row, consecutive losses in a row, is 23, set in 1961. The all-time record is 26 in a row, set in 1889. Now, the White Sox have won 3 total games since June 29th. It is August 5th.
That's a long time.
It's a lot of games.
They have 3 wins since June 29th. Yikes. I was going to... Oh, that's right. So if they were to beat the losing streak in the modern era, which again, 23, if they were able to lose 24 in a row, that would be against the Chicago Cubs at home, followed by a fireworks celebration.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Losing 24 in a row to the Chicago Cubs, followed up by a big fireworks show. Nothing says fun like losing 24 in a row to your rival. We can say whatever we want about the Reds, but thank God we're not them. Marlins shut out the Braves 7-0. Nationals beat the Brewers 4-3, win the series. Diamondbacks win 6-5 over the Pirates. They win that series. Royals hang on to beat the Tigers 3-2. Rays shut out Astros 1-0. Orioles, they crushed the Guardians 9-5. Olympic news. Scotty Scheffler, he won gold at the Olympics, tying the course record in Paris with a 62. John Rahm had a 4-shot lead entering the day and choked it all away. He did not finish on the podium. Tommy Fleetwood also led, and he stayed in silver, so he did win a medal.
Friend of the program.
Friend of the program. Hideki Matsuyama won bronze. Here's an interesting story. I don't know if anybody saw this. Tom Kim did not medal, which means according to South Korean law, he will have to serve a year of mandatory military service.
He will have one more chance.
He'll have one more chance.
The Asian Games. They're going over the criteria right now. Last year they allowed professional golfers to play in it for the first time. They're reviewing whether or not to let that happen again this year. But 2 golfers last year that missed out on medals in the Olympics medaled in the Asian Games and then were able to forego their military service as well. So hopefully he's going to get one more chance. Love Tom Kim. He's got a great shot at making a lot of wins on the tour if he can stay out of that.
Yep. He was seen visibly emotional after missing out on the podium yesterday. The Olympics medal race is as follows. The United States leads the pack by 20, as we always do. 72 medals the United States has, 19 gold, 27 silver, 26 bronze. China's in second place with 52. France is in third with 44. I was going to try to put in some of like the non-main sporting, but I'm going to be quite honest, I didn't know where to look for them. So I know Simone Biles has been doing really well.
She won another medal early this morning. She got, I believe, bronze early this morning.
Okay.
So she keeps building that record.
So good there. I saw the one pole vaulting guy. Anybody see that one?
Yeah. Did he lie?
I don't
that
know.
he's pole vaulted before?
I don't know. I don't think so. We'll see though. Olympics has been very fun.
Very fun.
Swimming stuff. Katie Ledecky, GOAT. I did like that. How she won by legit an entire pool length. The biking, I saw.
You see,
a
they had
guy-
to change the camera. Like they've had to adjust.
Oh, yeah.
They
Oh,
weren't.
yeah.
They knew she was good, but they were not anticipating having to readjust. They had to readjust the camera angles for every one of the meets moving forward for that she was in, just to be able, because it got to the point to where the camera always follows the lead. Well, then no one's getting any camera time, so they had to do it to make sure everyone's getting involved in the camera shot.
That's very good.
Good for her.
Yeah, the Olympics have been fun. But continuing on, I think the United States basketball team plays tomorrow.
I believe so.
Tomorrow, I believe. Anyway, continuing on, FC Cincinnati news. Yes, we do have FC Cincinnati news. The MLS Disciplinary Committee has suspended head coach Pat Noonan an extra game and has also issued 2 fines for misconduct in the July 17th loss to Chicago when he was sent off in the 90th minute. He will have to miss the next match, which is August 24th. It's a long time. Against Miami. Also, Aaron Bupenza has been away from FC Cincinnati for more than a week. The club says he is recovering from illness, but he has been spotted outside downtown, living it up, and sources tell Laurel Fowler, I think that's her name?
Yep.
Laurel Fowler, that he is simply not showing up to team activities. So they got a guy that's just holding out, I guess. I don't know what he's doing, but he's not playing on the team. Casey.
Very selfish move.
Very selfish.
Very selfish. One of the most selfish things you could do as a player.
I mean, this guy is also the same guy that got his jaw broken earlier in the season. So he's not been in the greatest light for not just the FCC team, but in fans in general. So not sure if we really care if he's been away from the team because he's not been good either.
I don't care.
I know you certainly don't care. Pat Noonan tried to pull his best David Bell impression, and I guess this league actually disciplines their managers and coaches for doing stuff that is outrageous. So that was crazy of him to do that. Getting issued 2 fines is kind of crazy. I think it should just be one for the one. I don't know exactly what the fines are. I have to look deeper into it, but it is kind of crazy that he was fined twice for it. Again, I don't know how big of a deal it is that he's not there, to be honest with you. Like,
Why? Do coaches not matter?
I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I just don't think him being there is all that important unless we're at full strength.
I agree.
I'm not expecting.
It's almost like because if the players are really good, then the manager almost doesn't really need to be there because the players win the games.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. I'll be there tonight.
For the record, I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying what other people might have said.
Maybe.
They play tonight against
Do they?
NYC FC.
They gonna win again or lose?
Hopefully win.
Wait, the FC Cincinnati's playing tonight?
Yeah.
It's not it's that stupid tournament,
It's
right?
that Leagues Cup, yeah.
Yeah, it's that one that doesn't count. Okay.
I'm going, so if you want to join.
Nah, I'm good.
Man on the street.
I do have to. Listen. I tried with the FCC man on the street. I'm willing to try it again. But the issue is nobody cares. So when I post a video, nobody watches it.
And no one's down there.
And nobody's
to
down
interview.
there. So that was my biggest issue. I am willing to try it again if Casey wants to go, though, for the record. But that's it. Those are your headlines.
Yes.
The Olympics. Did you see Snoop Dogg is being compensated $500,000 per day, in addition to covering his expenses for his promotional work for the Olympics?
Holy cow, that's a big check.
Must be nice.
I mean, because he just been. I mean, I was like, what is he doing? He just popping up randomly in these things. Well, it's all, he's paid to be there. As far, but that's a cool job. Other Olympic news. Ice Cube is challenging the Olympics 3-on-3 basketball gold medal winner to face the Big Three's best team in a $150,000 winner-take-all game in Boston on August 18th. So the Americans got eliminated from that, by the way. But just saying. So it won't be Jimmer Fredette and company.
Can I say something?
What up?
What are we doing with that team?
So there's a lot of rules with it.
Okay.
So I believe it's a 5-man team, and only 2 spots can be from players that haven't played don't play 3v3. So you'd only even be able to put 2 NBA players on there anyway, and then you'd have to fill it with other 3v3 experienced players. And then there's something with where the season lines up as well. The 3-on-3 season is during the G League season. So if you wanted to put G League players on that roster, they would have to be willing to forego their season in the Olympic years.
Interesting.
So there's a lot of different things with why the U.S. can't put their best players out there for the 3-on-3 team, but apparently USA Basketball is lobbying FIBA to change the rules, so we can just put
that would be good.
NBA players out there and win again.
LeBron.
No,
AD.
I want to keep those guys on the 5-on-5 team. Just give me Peyton Pritchard out there. Remember how good he was at Oregon? He posted all those ball handling videos in his garage. Just let him go cook the 30th best player from Mongolia.
But
he'll score 50 in 5
But Jacob,
minutes.
what if so the next Olympics, LeBron's, this is probably his last Olympics as far as with the men's team, right? What if guys like that, like him and Kevin Durant, they want to do the 3-on-3? Could they do 3-on-3 in 4 years?
I think hypothetically, yeah.
I'd rather see that than these no-name dudes. Just throwing that out there. Right?
No disrespect to Jimmer Fredette.
I mean, I do.
But how is that
Jimmer's
guy-
at least. I do like Jimmy. I like Jimmer.
How is that guy an Olympic athlete?
I wanted Michael Beasley on the team.
You could just throw out any old guy. That's
Michael Beasley's the Big 3 MVP.
Is he?
Yeah.
I will say this. That seems like a sport. Maybe we should try a different sport in there. The 3-on-3 thing just it doesn't really do anything.
Well, if you love 3-on-3 basketball, don't hold your breath because we got flag football coming soon.
That'll be interesting. That'll just be okay. So that'll just be the U.S. just down. That won't even be close.
Apparently, that's going to allow NFL players as well.
That'd be wild.
Which would be awesome.
That would be wild.
I don't know how they would do that because they're currently in training camp,
Yeah.
right? And the Olympics are going on, so
There you go.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's XFL players. Maybe they become more relevant.
What Goodell said that they're going to encourage NFL players to do it. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
but-
the NFL owners, not so
Right,
much. Like
right.
the owners, like whoa.
Yeah, we're gonna get some new clauses and contract extensions coming up.
We're all for
no,
patriotism,
No flag
but-
football in the Olympics.
We're all for patriotism, but we're not really supporting our team USA as far as flag football is concerned. But all right, we'll step away for a few moments. We have buy or sell coming up around the corner for our Chatterbox Sports on YouTube audience. We got Casey's ad reads and housekeeping items, and that's coming up next right here off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.
We're good.
That was a short segment too, so we can go longer on the next one.
All right, everyone in the chat. It's that time. It's ad time. And
That's right, Jimbo.
That's right, Chimbo.
What?
I don't know.
keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, keeping you
I
on
was
your
just
toes.
getting ready for him to say it.
Oh, I can't wait.
I see. The Future Bengals Report is proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore Technologies, we deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world. From mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions, we help businesses enhance efficiency and
Productivity.
That's right, Jimbo.
visit encore.tech where your path innovation begins. And let me tell you about this lovely bottle of water. Pawnee Water, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. Uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing other brands use. The result being a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com so we can buy this great tasting water. And I, for one, certainly drink it every single day. If I don't drink it here in the office, I'm not drinking water at all. So-
You say some people say it's the best tasting water in the world. The people that don't say that simply have never had Pawnee.
Yeah.
So 100% of the people that have ever had the luxury of Pawnee water touching their lips, they do say that it is the best water.
That's true.
Yeah, that's the purest form of water.
Amen.
And we have our last sponsor, the Game Time app. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. That's, again, code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code OTB. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Let's look at some of those events that Game Time has today.
I got 'em up.
Preseason game is sitting at $11 right now
Ooh.
for the Bengals. That's
Ooh.
interesting.
We got starters too, I believe.
Yeah, we do. I do believe we have starters. So go catch the Bengals.
You can buy
Gabriel-
Bengals season tickets on here.
You can?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. Gabriel Iglesias comes to Hard Rock. That is it's the 16th of this month on a Friday for $100. That's interesting. Royals. The Royals game on the 18th. They're already selling tickets for that for $5. Oof, that's low. Green Day comes to Great American Ballpark on the 22nd. That's a Thursday. And they're selling tickets for about $19. So go catch yourself a...
What, September 20?
It's this month.
Really?
22nd. Yep. Great American Ballpark.
And a lot of concerts that week.
I was going to say, they have Thomas Rhett's that
And
week.
Shaq.
Oh, my.
Oh, and Cincinnati Open, the 14th of this month, sitting at $170. So definitely check out the Game Time app. If any of those events interest you, download it. Use code OTB. Get $20 off.
I'm
your
definitely
purchase.
using OTB and getting out of that tennis. I got to watch some tennis. I love the Cincinnati Open.
Do you go?
I always try. I haven't in the last couple of years because I've been back at school, but all through high school and everything, I always went. I love it.
So I really do think it's the best, like, bang for your buck if you're going to go watch. If you just like watching sports. If you don't like watching tennis, go get one of the apps, bet on some tennis, and it's very
The
entertaining.
general admission ticket, being able to just walk around to all the different courts, find a seat, move
Yep.
around, it's incredible.
So I was a ball kid there for several years, and I would get to be up and close and personal with the professional athletes, and it was very fun. It was very cool, and I'd try to one hand serves, and famously I did catch one. I think the guy's name was Thonzai Kokonakis.
You think?
That was his name.
Maybe.
That was his. I don't know what the first name. I know the last name is Kokonakis. And he hit a serve. I want to say it was 140, 130. And I just palmed it. It was one of my greatest accomplishments.
We're going to need to find some ball boy footage.
I don't know if there's footage of that one. It
we'll
was on
find
one of the backcourts. But it's very fun. So if you buy, like, basically how it works is you can buy a day pass or a night pass. If you buy the day pass, they technically won't allow you to stay for the night session, but the tickets are only for center court. There's 15 other courts. So you just stay there all day if you want. It's very, very fun. I do plan on going back this year, hopefully. I always try to go as well. It's one of my favorite events of the year.
Cool.
Very rare city like Cincinnati, you get an event like this where everyone plays.
Yeah.
Like all the big names play every time. So it's really, really
Many are saying it's the 5th Grand Slam. I'm not saying it, but many are. So I will be using the Game Time app, and I will be going to the Cincinnati Open.
That's right.
Cool.
Formerly Western and Southern.
People want proof of that. They want the video. Is there footage of Elliot being a ball boy? They want to
There's
see.
no video, but there are pictures.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No video, but there are pictures.
Some other housekeeping items. Those of you in the chat, we've got about 100 of you today. Only 34 likes. Can we hit that like button? That helps us out a lot. Shares it with more of you, so we can grow and continue to build this great community that we got here. Also share it with a friend if you haven't already done so. Other housekeeping items, we have box lunch after this. We'll hang out right after the show. Just give me a minute to post the audio and stuff to our shows, and we'll get started on that. You guys know the deal that are members. And if you want to become a member, we have different options for you. There's a $10 membership that gets you pretty much all the videos that we do. And then the $25 membership allows you to get a discount code for our merchandise store. Anything else that we've got going on that you guys can think of? No? All right. Well, that is all the housekeeping items I have, all the ads I have to read. Let's go back to the radio.
All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Jimmy, Casey, Elliot, and Jacob with you here on a Monday. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Before we get into some buy or sell, just real quick, Bengals update from camp yesterday. Just a couple notes here. Again, Joe Burrow, great, has looked great thus far. I mean, I think they said early on just a couple overthrows and didn't look sharp early, but his timing is starting to really come down, which that's a good thing because he was given that full bill of health heading into camp, 100% they say, which was kind of weird because I think at the end of the OTAs and everything, they shut him down a little prematurely. I know they said that was part of the plan, but some even reporters, Jay Morrison, had come on and was kind of even questioning that because they weren't really sure. They thought it was kind of odd. Why do you shut him down the final day when you could just have him do one more day and then spend the next month off before training camp? But nonetheless, I think all those doubts have been put to bed. Obviously, we have to see him out there in a game, but for right now, it looks pretty solid.
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show started. I don't really know how much weight I always put into training camp clips and stories and whatever else. You know, they've only been wearing pads for 3 days, and I feel like we've been talking about them for a month now. So we'll see what happens when the week starts. But you know, when you're in the first week of August and your baseball team is dead, you hold on to training camp stories. So that's what I've been doing for the last week. Everything good coming out of camp has been great. And Burrow getting rave reviews. A couple other guys who've just been absolutely burning it down. I know Casey and I are really, really excited about all the reports coming out about Amarius Mims, seemingly sliding into that right tackle role with Trent Brown out so far. Just sliding in there seamlessly and being great. Both Burrow and the coaches have given him, flying color grades, since the start of camp. And then the biggest story, I think, for everyone around here is that it seems like Andre Yoshivas has taken a pretty solid grip of that wide receiver 3 spot so far. Jermaine Burton tweaked his ankle, missed a practice or two last week. So Yoshivas has slid into that role, and he's been tearing it down as well. So, the list of receivers who we could expect to see in that third receiver spot continues to grow, and there's just more and more names to get excited about. So everything with the Bengals continues to go on the up and up, and with Mims continuing to play well, Trent Brown was just cleared to return to practice yesterday. He didn't practice yesterday, but presumably he'll be back here soon. So we'll see how that competition goes to the right tackle slot. A lot of really exciting stuff going on with the Bengals in Cincinnati.
Yoshivas, you guys are really high on him.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about the NFL is because we put so much stock into the top draft picks and we put so much stock into the top free agents. My favorite is when guys just kind of like take off out of nowhere and they're kind of your surprise. Like the one thing to remain at the top is to be pretty lucky in the draft, and that's not taken away from the work that's put in behind the scenes. But like you look at the Rams, right? There's a lot of talk about the future of Cooper Kupp with the Rams and all this, and then they get Puka Nacua, right? Like that's, and it's not saying that, but he shouldn't be as good as what he is, and he's taken off. That could potentially be what the Bengals might have in Chivas. Of course, you look at a couple years ago, I know it's a different position, but the running back position, Pacheco was not drafted to be the Chiefs' number one running option, but that's who he is, and that's what he has done, and he's been very formidable at that. So a lot of times to remain at the top, to be a Super Bowl contender, once the big chunks of your payroll start to be distributed to the key positions, you have to start hitting on guys like that to be able to plug holes that you can't financially prioritize once you spend some of your bigger dollars. So he could play a big role in the team's success moving forward, especially as we sit back and wait for what's going to happen with Jamar Chase. Still did not participate over the weekend, still at camp. I know we touched on that last week. We don't need to keep beating that dead horse, but that is a story that does need to be continued to be followed, but I'm curious to see how much longer into camp that goes as far as that's concerned. You talked about, obviously, Darius Mims, Trent Brown cleared to practice, okay, but didn't. He was cleared to practice yesterday, but they still kept him out anyways as a precaution. Some other injury updates. He remained on the rehab field yesterday with Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, and Sheldon Rankins is the newest one, but he was given a rest day, apparently. Sheldon Rankins, a name also, I think, needs to be valued heading into this season too, because there's a lot of responsibilities for him as well.
Yeah, we lost DJ Reader. Jimmy's Lions swooped in and picked him up, and obviously he was a big piece both leadership-wise and production-wise on that defense last year. You're hoping Sheldon Rankins, who was the big spend in that position, you're hoping he can come in and make a difference. Not even remotely close to the same kind of player as Reader. Reader much more focused on the run. Sheldon Rankins, a pass rush guy, but if he can be, the second guy that we've been clamoring for in Cincinnati for a long time, right behind Trey Hendrickson in sacks, maybe he can make a difference in the middle of that defense. He could be a really, really big X factor into how high this defense can climb this year.
All right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Last thing on the Bengals here, and then we'll get to buy or sell. Chase Brown getting the majority of the run reps. Surprise or not surprise? Where are you at with that?
Surprised that it's happening so early. Not surprised that it happened. I think this was kind of my expectation at some point this season. I certainly am a little bit surprised that it happened in the first week of camp. But Zach Moss, a great blocker, a really powerful running back, great between the tackles. But the burst Chase Brown showed last year and just his limited amount of touches, he was the fastest recorded running back in the entire league. So the ability that he has to create space, make guys miss in the open field, and really add a little bit of extra push to that offense, a little bit more explosiveness, which we've really been missing for the last couple of years. Outside of Jamar and T, Joe Mixon's explosiveness has really fallen off in the last couple of years. We know what Tyler Boyd had been lacking in the last few years when it comes to that side of the ball. So adding guys like Yoshivas and Burton to that wide receiver role, younger, faster, more explosive, and then putting Chase Brown back there, maybe the fastest running back in the entire league, is going to make this offense look, I think, a lot different than we've seen in the last couple of years.
All right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. It's now time for a little buy or sell.
Buy
as we
or
close
sell.
out. Yeah, we need a sounder for that one.
Buy or sell.
And there it is.
What about James Madison? What if he did it?
Let's hear it. Oh, we've missed him. I think we've missed James Madison as much as you.
As much as me.
As much as you.
It's time for buy or sell. I'm Jimmy Madison.
I say number one.
Number one.
All right, number one. Thank you, Mr. Madison. Number one on
Mr. Madison. It's President.
President Madison. But number one, how about this one? The Houston Texans will get to the AFC title game in year 2 of CJ Stroud. Buy or sell? Jimmy will start from left to right, at least my left to right. Buy or sell the Houston Texans getting to the AFC championship game in year 2 of CJ Stroud?
I'm going to sell it. I think you got to, respectfully, I think you have to put the Chiefs in there. And then I think a team like the Ravens or the Bengals are better built this year. But I'm also kind of expecting a bit of a sophomore slump-ish from CJ Stroud. I thought he was phenomenal last year. I still think he's gonna be a great quarterback in the NFL. But I do think that there's a lot of pressure on him this year, especially adding a receiver like Stephon Diggs. I think they won't quite live up to those expectations this year. I think they'll be good. I think they'll be shooting for a playoff berth, but I think that they'll be an early exit and not make it as far as the championship game.
All right, now Casey, the Houston Texans at this point, they remind me a ton of the Bengals coming up after they got Joe Burrow. And it looks like the Texans are building this roster similar to how the Bengals did it initially early on, taking advantage of the quarterback on the rookie deal. Buy or sell the Houston Texans getting to the AFC Championship game in year 2 of CJ Stroud?
I'm going to sell this as well. I just think that it is uber competitive in the AFC. It is just too hard to predict anyone to make it to the championship round. Even the Kansas City Chiefs. I know they've done it time and time again, but it's just it's too competitive to just slot a team in there this year. You just can't do it. And I think AFC South, it won't be a pushover like it was last year. It's going to be much more competitive. Colts are going to finally have Anthony Richardson for a full season. I think the Jaguars are pretty good, and we'll see from the Titans. They might be the worst of that team, but they're a little frisky.
They are.
So I really, really think that I'm going to have to sell this one as much as I love the Texans.
Mr. Madison.
I think they're either going to make the AFC Championship game or they're going to miss the playoffs.
No in between. Yeah.
I don't see a world where they're just a really, really good team this year, not going to win a playoff game, yada yada yada. I think they're either going to have a really, really good season or a really mediocre bad season. And I do think it's probably going to be a sophomore slump type of year, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think Jacob kind of said it, the division's a little tougher this season than it was last year. I think it's more competitive, and I think with all of these newfound expectations on the Texans, it's going to be difficult to live up to them. So with that reason, I'm going to sell that. They are not going to make the AFC Championship game, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I like to be a contrarian when we go around the room and everyone does one thing, but I'm not going to be able to buy this one. I'm selling it too. I love CJ Stroud. I'm an Ohio State fan. I loved CJ Stroud his whole time there. Glad he burnt the world down last year in his rookie year. He's the third favorite to win the MVP this season.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The expectations on this kid are way too high. You added pieces that I don't think move the needle as much as a lot of people expect them to. You added Stephon Diggs, who fell off drastically in the back half of the season last year. Still put up respectable numbers, but fell off drastically last year. And then Joe Mixon, who has really been tapering off in his career. He's doing solid numbers with a greater number of carries, which I don't think he's going to get the same amount of touches this year that are going to get him the yards that he had with the Bengals in his career that I think a lot of people are expecting. So I really don't think the Texans are going to make the AFC Championship this year. I'm more with Elliot, where I'm not even penciling them into the playoffs yet. I think it's going to be a gauntlet in that division. I'm not even necessarily picking them to win the South. So, I'm going to sell this one pretty confidently.
I'm high on the Houston Texans. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, but I would much rather have the Houston Texans roster, and I really, really love the Cleveland Browns roster. Obviously, it starts up top at the quarterback. I think that the Houston Texans have the best offense in the entire AFC. I mean, I think it's their wide receiver core, I think, is better as a whole than the Cincinnati Bengals, although I like Jamar Chase better than Stephon Diggs. But as a whole, from a run game perspective, and their offensive line is really, really solid. From a run game perspective, I like the addition of Joe Mixon. And C.J. Stroud wasn't just a good rookie quarterback. He had the best rookie quarterback season in the history of the NFL. It was fantastic. And he looked like, and honestly, I said last year, there was a certain point where he just continued on dominating that. I'm like, if he wasn't a rookie, he would be in the MVP conversation. Didn't just make the playoffs, they won the division, right? Then they go on to win a game in the playoffs. I forgot who they beat. It's not important, though. The point is that they got to win in the playoffs. But when you look at what they added, you already had Nico Collins and Tank Dell, and then you go, of course, and you add a Stephon Diggs to bring a veteran receiver into the mix as well, who is arguably a top 5 wide receiver the last couple of years and still has the expectation to be that. Defense, they were a middle of the pack defense last year. They were had the 6th best run defense last year. They were not a good defense against the pass. They go and they add a couple pass rushers in the offseason. I think that this is one of the most complete teams in the AFC. I'm not saying that they're better than the Chiefs because I can't pick anyone over the Chiefs when you look at what they've done over recent years. But as far as opportunity, he has a better opportunity than the Bengals, a better opportunity than the Chiefs, and some of the better offenses in the league. When you look at from tight end to running backs to offensive line to 3 wide receivers, CJ Stroud has no excuse but to at least get to the AFC Championship game. I think that they're going to take a humongous step this year. Yes, their division is better, but when you look at the quarterbacks in that division, I'm not taking any one of them even close to being as talented as what we see with C.J. Stroud. I think he is going to be in the MVP conversation, and I think that the Houston Texans might be the number 1 seed when it's all said and done out of the AFC. How's that for a hot take coming out here
I like that.
on a Monday? No doubt about it. All right, buy or sell. What's that?
I say good work.
No, thank you, Mr. Max.
Buy or sell number 2.
Number 2, thank you.
You're welcome.
Number 2, a couple baseball things here. The Cincinnati Reds will get within 2 games of the wild card
LOL.
by the end of August. Mr. Madison, we'll start with you.
Not only will this not happen, so I'm selling that, getting within 2 of the wild card. I think they finish 4th worst in the NL this season. 4th worst. So I think it's what's like, how are they going to win games? If they're not going to beat the Rays, if they're going to get no hit by the Giants, I have a hard time believing you're going to try to sneak into the playoffs, losing to every wild card team under the sun. Coincidentally, outside of the Braves, and then they also beat the Phillies and the Dodgers and the Yankees. Any good team the Reds can beat. But any of these middling of the pack teams fighting for wild card spots, they lose, and to be quite honest, it's not all that competitive. Against the Rays, I think they had a 120 batting average for that series. Against the Giants, a 130 batting average for that series. Is the batting average going to improve? Probably not. Is the defense and the base running, is that going to improve? Probably not. Basically what you have is you have Hunter Green every 5 days is going to give you a very good chance to win a baseball game.
And you might lose.
And then you might lose that. So that's what I have right now as a Reds fan. So they will not be anywhere near 2 games of the wild card.
Yeah, no, I'm selling this as well. We're 6.5 back right now. I would put a bet that we're closer to 10 than 2 by the time the month ends.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm out on that, and I think it's less of a hot take than you think to say we're going to be bottom 4 in the National League.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're there right now.
Are we?
Oh, yeah.
Who's the third?
It's Rockies, Marlins, Nationals, and then your
Nationals.
lowly Cincinnati Reds. Just 2.5
got swept by
games
the Nationals.
above the Nationals. So,
You know? Look, and Jimmy, get to you in 1 second. Just I look at this right now. As far as the Cincinnati Reds, it's just the opportunity. It's the opportunity at this point right now. Look, the reason why we're ripping our hair out is because every time I think we've buried this team multiple times this year. And then they go on this stupid run where they get us to buy back in just so we can get this angry again multiple times throughout the season. I'm going to buy it just because it's not so much about the Cincinnati Reds. It's about the inconsistencies of everyone else in the National League. You know, one point we didn't touch on earlier is the fact that the reason I'm angry that the Reds aren't being more aggressive is because of how bad the division is, or how bad the division and the National League is at this point. Because it's kind of one of those situations where I'm like, by the time the Reds do get really, really good and are loaded in a lot of positions, so could 3 or 4 other teams. And we'll look back and say, man, if only we had this roster back when the rest of the division and the National League was down. So because of that, I'm going to buy this just because I can't bury the Reds. I can't 100% bury them, just like I can't 100% buy them. But we've seen too many ups and downs to just assume that there's no more ups for the rest of the season. I think they have another run left in them. I think they have one more opportunity to get us to all buy in one more time. I'm going to buy it as far as that's concerned. Buy or sell, Jimmy, the Cincinnati Reds getting at least within 2 games of the wild card by the end of August.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to sell it. I think we've seen kind of a good stretch here with like that Cubs series, and they were winning games kind of around that time, and they were still not making up any ground in the wild card. It's felt like the teams who are in that real wild card race right now with like the Mets and the Padres and the Diamondbacks, those teams have all really started to get hot, really started to win games, and I feel like the Reds are just too streaky to really make up any ground here in that wild card race. So I'm going to sell it. I think they'll, like Jacob said, they'll definitely be closer to 10 games back than they are to 2 games back. So, yep, sell.
All right, Casey, close us out on this one. Buy or sell, the Reds getting to within 2 games of the wild card.
I'm selling, and I don't want to beat everyone's head over and over and over about the same points, so I'm not going to say much. I just don't have much faith in this team anymore. So.
And they don't deserve to have that confidence as far as that's concerned. Last one on the way out, quickly on the way out, buy or sell. Okay, as we sit here right now, the final buy or sell. The Cleveland Guardians have the best record in baseball. Okay, they have the best record in baseball. Are they the best team in baseball? That's still to be determined. But buy or sell, the Guardians will make it to at least the American League Championship Series. Buy or sell? Jacob, we'll start with you.
I'm going to sell it, even though I'm rooting for them. I'm going to sell it just because how often do we see small market teams actually make it in the playoffs? You see so many successful regular seasons, and then it usually tapers out pretty early. I think there's a lot of firepower in the American League, and I just don't see the Guardians making a whole lot of noise in the playoffs. I hope I'm wrong. Because it'd be really, really cool to see them make a run and be good for all the small market teams everywhere to see that it is possible. But I'm not going to put my money on it. I'm selling.
To Jimmy we go to mix it up. Jimmy, buy or sell? Will the Guardians get to the American League Championship Series?
Yeah, I think the
Jimmy
Guardians
stinks.
The Guardians are a great team. I think their strength is their bullpen, but I think their weakness is their starting pitching, and I think some of the offenses that they're going to face in the playoffs are going to get to them early to the point where the bullpen is just going to be kind of hanging on for dear life, trying to keep games close. I think they'll win a playoff series, but I don't quite think they'll make the ALCS. I don't even think they're going to finish with the best record in the American League. So
Well, I like that. It's with a lot of time left, and that's it. I mean, especially as things start to get tighter heading in. Casey, buy or sell the Guardians American League Championship Series?
I think every year there's, in just about every league, there's one team that just kind of comes out of nowhere that makes a lot of noise in the regular season, and then they just flounder when it matters most in the playoffs. I think that's the Cleveland Guardians, and I hate saying that, but I just can't get out of my mind watching your show before they even started the regular season, and I don't know if it was you or if it was
It was me, Kevin, Trace. I think I know the show you're talking about, yeah.
And he said, I have no faith in this team. They're going to be the worst in their division and this, that, and the other. That sticks in my mind till this day. So that being said, I just don't see them making it to the championship.
I don't think they win the division. I don't think they're going to win that division. They've got a ton of divisional games coming up. I think the Royals are really, really good. I think the Twins are better than most people think. But they have I think they only play the White Sox one more time, so they get one more free series.
The White Sox are 42 games back.
That's tough.
Of the division.
The White Sox have won 10 games on the road this season.
Good for them. And if you think
in
maybe they won
57 attempts.
If you think, hey, well, certainly they've won more at home. 17.
What's their number, Jim? What did the Tigers do? Was it 44?
the Tigers won 43 games. They went 43 and 119. The White Sox need to win 17 more games to not have the worst 162-game season ever.
There's no way they win 17.
There's no way.
Which is crazy. They need to win 17 games 20 games ago.
Yeah.
That is wild.
So,
But yeah, I don't think they win that division. I do not think they advance in the postseason if they were to be so lucky and make the postseason. I think the wheels will fall off at some point.
Look, I'm not high on the Cleveland Guardians at all. By the way, they do have the best record in baseball. And if the Reds had the best record in baseball, we'd be super high on our team, like Guardians fans are on theirs. But by the way, you know me, I'm big on numbers, right? Big on stats. The Guardians they're an average team statistically. What are they great at? What are they great? Real quick, I know we're almost out of time. What are the Guardians great at? When you think of the Guardians,
Their bullpen.
their bullpen's incredible.
Yeah.
their bullpen at this point, but again, you look at everything else, very average in every major statistical category. I mean, they lead. I think they're third in baseball with runners. They leave at least 3 runners in scoring position every single game, which is third most in baseball at this point. I mean, they're very middle of the pack when it comes to hitting. Their power numbers are average. Everything about them is average. And I think when you get to that's good enough to win in the regular season, especially in a bad division. But when you get to the postseason, you're facing teams who are there for a reason. You're facing teams who are great. And I don't think that they are going to be able to out-average great teams, even though they have the best record in baseball. Also, I'm not pulling for the Guardians. I want them to fail. I do not want teams who do not invest into their team to succeed. And I don't care if that's a hot take. I don't care if that upsets the little Guardian fans out there. I do not care. Any organization that does not invest into their team does not deserve to win, and I do not want them to be bailed out, and I don't want the Reds and other small market teams to look at the Guardians and say, see, we don't need to spend money. Look at the Guardians. They just made it to the American League Championship Series. Look at the Guardians. They just made it to the World Series. They don't spend money. They're bottom 5 in spending for 5 straight years. I do not want that to be the example set around Major League Baseball. I think that's an embarrassment, and we should be criticizing the Guardians, not praising them. Praise the players. I'm happy for the players, but the front office, I'm down on that.
That's a good take.
I'm not cool with that. We're out of time. Thank you, everyone, at least on the radio side. Thank you for tuning in. Hope everyone had a great weekend. We'll do this again tomorrow. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench on 1410 ESPN Radio. All right, we are back. It's 11:48. We have about 12 minutes remaining. But, yeah, like, Guardians fans get super ticked at that. I'm like, I'm not ripping the players. It's not the players' fault. I love the fact that the players are out there doing their thing. But I do think in baseball, like, there's so many moving parts. You can't just be good at one. Like, the Guardians, if they get to the second round of the playoffs and lose, it's because they didn't spend money. They got there because they developed well and drafted well, but they didn't advance because they didn't add to it. Like, that's the thing. They actually have a head start on everyone. If you are bottom 5 in spending and you're this good, you have a head start on everybody. You technically have, I know this sounds wild, they have a head start on the Dodgers and others because you're there without investing into your team. So imagine if you just cap it off with that. You know, people get mad at the Yankees and Dodgers because the insinuation is, and the Dodgers have a very good system, but the insinuation is with the Dodgers is that, well, they don't do all the little things right. They just buy their success. Yeah. No, they do a lot of it right. That's why the Dodgers are a consistent powerhouse in baseball. The Guardians, they are dominant at what they do as far as development, especially pitchers. I mean, I can't tell how many big-name pitchers that they've moved on from over the years, and it has never impacted them as far as that's concerned. I'm jealous of that as a Reds fan. I would love to have that consistency within the Reds system. But, man, oh, man, I know the Reds spend money. I think they're about 15th or whatever. They're average in spending. It doesn't guarantee that you'll have success. But once the Reds get to the point to where their development matches the spending, as far as even from an average standpoint, the Reds will be very, very consistent and very, very good at that point.
The Reds just need to stay on the field. It's been a problem now for 3 years, 4 years, since 2020, since 2019. Since 2019, they just haven't been healthy, and they've been nowhere close to healthy. The key players of their team aren't there for a large portion of the season. And it's been the story of the past several years. It's the story this season. That has to end at some point. I know injuries happen to everybody. I understand that 100%. But it seems to me like we are missing key pieces every single year at the worst times, and it costs the Reds. I'm not saying they're doing anything wrong per se. Maybe it is just all bad luck. I don't know how much the luck calculator factors in when you've advanced in the postseason 0 times since 1995. I don't know how that works. Can you blame luck at that point? Probably not. But the fact of the matter is, if Matt McClain's not going to be healthy, if Noelvi Marte is not going to be here for half a year, if CES is going to be bad and then miss the entire year, I don't know. I don't know what the Reds have. I don't know what the core is. I don't know because we haven't seen anything. We've seen half of a season last year. That's what we've seen. And it made us go all in. It made us believe in this. It made us say this is the right move. And I think it is. I still believe it is. Jacob likes to say, and Jacob is right, that all of these guys are so young. Every single one of them. Noelvi Marte is a child practically. But it doesn't help the fact that when they're not on the field, when I don't see them, they're not getting their reps, which means it's just a lost year of their development. So as we continue to say they're young, it almost doesn't even work because if you're not on the field, I don't know what you are. So it's great that you're young. It's great that we still got everybody here. But we need to see you play. It happened to Nick Senzel, one of the Reds' most prominent prospects coming up the ranks. Guy was never healthy. Literally 0 games that guy was healthy. So, yeah, that's my only cause for concern is I think they've done decent and when it comes to spending. I think they did spend this past offseason to put the Reds in a decent position if you have the core available to you. The Reds do not have that core available to them, and then next season we have to adjust on that. I would say we need to go out and we need to not buy into this core per se. Sure, we bank that they're going to be there and play, but we need a contingency plan if just everyone's going to be hurt again, and then we just lose another season and nothing good happens. So this coming off season, I'd like to see them buy in a couple outfielders, at least one. I need one outfielder, and I probably need another infielder. Somebody that's a little bit better than Santiago Espinal, all due respect.
Not named Ty France.
Ty France, what is he hitting?
He had a good play in the field, though.
Yes, he did.
Caught that ball.
Ooh, 0.83.
Fits right in.
Jacob Hurtubise, 185. Levi Jordan, 100. Edwin Rios, 111. Connor Capel, 250.
in
Blake Dunn,
5 plate appearances.
Blake Dunn, .56. Mike Ford, 150. Noelvi Marte, 168. Luke Maley, 170. CES, 190. I know batting average doesn't really matter, but at the same time, you can't field a competitive roster with these names. So go out, have a contingency plan when things don't work. Don't say that you're giving the team a chance when I just read all those names and those are active starters.
Well, people say that batting average don't matter, but show me a good lineup hitting that consistently bad from an average standpoint. Like
Mariners, I think, are the only one.
Mariners
Mariners are bad at batting average, and they're a really good team. So that's like the one.
God, you guys
There's
have
a
an
couple
answer for everything?
exceptions.
They're the worst team in the league in batting average, and they're winning their division.
So that is one.
Well,
But I'm not.
Have a
Obviously,
napkin,
that's
egg on my face real quick when you think you make a good point, and then bam, the Mariners.
exception to the rule, though. So it's like it's whatever. I don't know. I found that watching the Reds is so tedious to me now this season. I just found it so frustrating. I'll follow them. I'll keep track of what they do, who's doing well. But watching 9 innings is starting to become annoying to me. It's a nuisance. Because I know the end result, and the end result's not what I want. So why would I continue
I haven't
watching?
been excited for a Reds game in months.
No, and the only thing that would really change it is, ironically, the 12-game win streak. You win 12 in a row, then everybody's going to be back in. The issue is, we all know, when they win 12 in a row, they will match it with an equally bad losing streak.
See, I disagree. It's not about winning 12. It's just winning series.
They don't do that.
They don't
though.
do that.
No, that's what I mean. Like I'm not even asking for a 12-game win streak. I'm just asking for don't lose. Like, you just can't lose these series.
How many
Like,
back-to-back series victories have we had this year? Does anybody
I'd
know
have to
that
pull
number?
up. Not off the top of my head. I do
Back-to-back
not.
series victories. It happened Colorado and Miami.
Back-to-back series wins. I mean, that's a good question. I
I
know
don't
it hasn't
know.
happened in the second
It
half.
happened to start the year with the Phillies and the Nationals, I think, is who we opened with. I don't know. I just don't know what the Reds are, so that's unfortunate. I wanted to believe in the core. Lost year. We've learned nothing from this season except, and these are 2 big excepts, that Hunter Green is a very damn good pitcher and Ellie De La Cruz is a very damn good baseball player. That's 2 things that have been cemented this season, and I'm very happy that's happened. Out of all the wrong that's happened, to see Ellie play like this at an MVP caliber level, and to see Hunter Green pitch at a Cy Young caliber level, that's given me some hope. Some hope. Because if Hunter Green was bad this year, I'd have major concerns.
Yeah, and we're not just sitting here as Reds fans trying to find, some silver lining or whatever else. Like, those 2 guys are legitimately competing for those awards.
Yeah.
This isn't, you hear a lot of fan bases all the time be like, oh, our ace is a Cy Young pitcher, and
Yeah.
he's not really. These guys, like Hunter Green right now is behind Chris Sale, Zach Wheeler, and Paul Skeens for the Cy Young. That's it.
Yeah.
He's right in the thick of that thing. And Ellie, obviously, Shohei at this point is, I believe, minus 1,000 to win the national. Oh, no, minus 1,450. That's great.
Yikes.
Minus 1,450
Yikes.
to win the National League MVP. So no one's really in that race. But he's right there in the top 6. So, he's right in the thick of it. And at only 22 years old, I know you can't keep pointing back to the age thing, but I think it's a little different when you're pointing back to it in a sense of how well he's playing instead of making it as an excuse for how bad he's playing. I think it just, grows how amazing this season has been for him just exponentially to realize he's doing it in his first full season up. And then Hunter, an ERA over 4.5 the last 2 years. There were some real concerns about his longevity at the front of this rotation, and he's, a historic run right now that has never been replicated in the history of the modern era of baseball. So
He's gone at least 6 innings the past 5 outings. 3 times he's gone 7 innings. He hasn't allowed more than 3 hits during that stretch, and he's only allowed 1 earned run. With I don't know how many strikeouts this is. That's 21, 26. 26 plus 7 is 34. 34 plus 7 is 41. He's had 41 strikeouts over his last 5 games, allowing 1 earned run. He's been absolutely incredible. So I there's nothing else I can say. Anybody who wanted to say the Hunter Green is going to be a reliever, Hunter Green's bad Hunter Green, that contract extension was one of the best moves they could have made, and it has worked out. This is why you do a move like that, because of what Hunter Green's doing right now.
Well, as good as he has been, I think who would be as bad of a pitcher would be Angel Reese. That I don't know what you guys think of that take.
what are we doing?
What do you guys think of that
What are we
take?
doing?
What do you think of that? Is that a good take? I think she'd be
We
bad.
had a
dude.
good show today.
I think she
we
and then
had.
and then I ended with that.
And then you ruined it.
No, so we opened up the show just for the final poll results. So we opened up the show with something I came across. Jim Bowden had tweeted this out yesterday that the Reds' expected win-loss record, according to the metrics, is 59-52. That would put them at a half game out of the wild card spot right now. He goes on to talk about how their run differential second best in the NL Central, yet they're in last place. But they, according to the metrics, MLB's most underachieving team based on the analytics and scouting evaluators. He threw out the question: statistics waiting to be corrected or just an aberration? And we put out the poll question. Casey, what was the final results in the poll in the chat?
The final results were 61% said yes, statistics are waiting to be corrected, and 38% said no.
So, interesting. People's thoughts. I mean, you're big on numbers, except when the numbers don't tell you what you want to hear. You don't think this team's underachieved, though?
No, I don't.
You just, why do you? I'm not at the risk of getting.
No, it's fair.
Why? Like the numbers are telling you they are, but you're choosing to ignore these numbers. But like you live and die by the numbers, but you ignore these numbers. Why?
I don't think this team. I think this is what I've expected from the lineup that's been out there. Is my thing, and I think those numbers are. I don't know exactly how that record's calculated, but to me, those numbers are saying we should win games because we win blowouts and lose close games, and we beat good teams and lose bad teams. And I assume when you pull all those numbers together, you say this team should be a team that swept the Yankees, beat the Blue Jays, or beat the Phillies, and swept the Dodgers should be much better. Yes, I agree with that, but I don't necessarily know. Maybe I should just look into it. I'll look into it more, and I'll get you a better answer tomorrow. But I just feel like those are taking into different parts of the stats and not looking at the whole story. With a lineup that, fielded the names that Elliot just read off there, I have a hard time believing they should be this much better than that.
I don't think he's not just basing it off run differential.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
He might. He's an old school guy, but
the beating good teams and losing to bad teams, I think, is probably going into that.
Okay, that's fair. And I'm not sitting up here pretending
I truly believe that's the dumbest thing. I saw that trending on Twitter
about Bowden's tweet.
Yeah, it's just they don't win games. I don't care what they're supposed to do. They've lost.
But we put so much into numbers, and the numbers are showing that yes, the record, but like they're doing.
Reed said it is just runs scored versus runs allowed.
But off of what Bowden's using.
Yeah.
Reed, thank you. So that's why we're trying to.
He said that's the same Pythagorean win-loss we had talked about before.
Okay.
That's just the dumbest thing ever.
But
the Pythagorean thing is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Win a baseball game.
I agree.
You want to hit a ball hard? Great. Why don't you hit it over the fence?
And I like using
and then we'll celebrate
numbers and different stats and everything to project players. Like I know the joke on here is batting average, but if a guy hits 10 straight 110-mile-an-hour outs, it means he's seeing the ball a little bit better. Maybe he's going to come out of the slump soon. I use this somewhat in the same way if you want to look at it. Maybe this team isn't quite as far away as we think. I don't necessarily like looking back and saying, oh, well, that game should have been a win based on that's a win and that's a win, so we got to, change everything up. I don't know. Maybe it's just being a little optimistic when you can find somewhere to be.
Yeah,
but.
I mean,
swept by the Tigers, swept by the Nationals, lose to the Rays after Hunter Green gives you 7 innings of shutout baseball. You lose to the Giants, you get no hit. It's just at some point I can't sit here and defend what they're supposed to be if they're going to get swept by terrible teams. So it's like I don't know. If they're 9 games over 500 in hypothetical world, that's great for them.
Woohoo!
Give him a medal.
All right, that wraps it up for us here today. Thank you, everyone in the chat. On the way out, please give it a like. Please give it the thumbs up. That we would really appreciate that. And that's it for today. Until tomorrow, it's been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.